Hello everyone, I'm Mishal, a sports nutritionist, and welcome to my channel Diet Keto Lifestyle. This video is another one in the series of Low-Carb Heroes of India. I am more than happy to have with us today Vijay Sarathi. There is science, there is data, and there is actual proof. There is real life people having real success stories. And Vijay's story is such a motivation to all of us. So good morning and welcome Vijay to the video.
Good morning, Mishal. How are you?
I'm good. And how have you been?
Fantastic, Mishal.
Great. So, Vijay, today we will be talking, in fact, you will be telling us about your journey into low carb, your battle with diabetes, your journey through health, and to all our viewers, before we begin this show, this is not a medical advice. Please do not change your medications without consulting your doctor. Do not change your diet plan without consulting a good low carb nutritionist. And this is story of Vijay about how he has been able to manage. Of course, it is something that even you can do, but it is not a medical advice. Please be in touch with your doctor. Tell us about what actually got you into low carb. What was it that made you go out of the normal routine and try to explore something which is so much untraditionally heard in today's time?
Right. So, Mishal, I was diagnosed as a diabetic at an early age of 29, and I was a type 2 diabetic. Of course, when I was diagnosed, I was, for a year or two, I managed with a very active lifestyle, right? Going for very active walks for about 1.5 hours. And had a very good diet regimen, which did have those days. This was, I'm talking about 2001. And those days, the concept of carb was not there. So the only treatment for diabetes was either medicines and you drop sugar and sweets. Right. So the carb was restricted, but I was still able to manage my sugar levels by diet and exercise. But over a period of time, in another 2 years or 3 years, diabetes caught up slowly. The insulin, now what we call it as insulin resistance. Hindsight, we didn't know all those things. Slowly, I entered the world of tablets with metformin, as everybody does. And then it went into glitazones those days. And slowly, it started progressing. As we started increasing the medication, the sugar levels used to drop a bit, and then it used to climb back. Right? And progressively, the HbA1c was climbing. What started off at around 6.7 or something, eventually started going up. And until 2008, maybe I reached about HbA1c 8.18 levels. And in 2008, I decided, even though I was a type 2 diabetic, somebody told me that, you can save your pancreas by taking an external supplement of insulin. But of course, that needed a little bit more of care, and I was a pharmacist, and I could manage that. So I started taking insulin just to save my pancreas, so that I don't exhaust all those using the sulfonylureas, which keep on squeezing your pancreas. And I entered with a starting dose of 6 + 6, 12 units a day, right, in 2008.
This was after how many years of diagnosis?
About 8 years.
Okay. So 8 years
I was diagnosed in 2000.
Yeah. So 8 years after you were diagnosed, you started with insulin. Okay.
That's right. But that was on my own. It was not a doctor's advice. In the sense, I went to a doctor and I asked for him, right? So the guy who was treating me.
Right. And that's
he said, okay.
because...
And then,
yeah, that's because, as you mentioned, you are a pharmacist by education. So, so you were able to, understand and evaluate
and titrate the doses. Absolutely.
Right.
Otherwise, you risk the incidence of going into hypoglycemia, and any day hyperglycemia is better than hypoglycemia.
Correct.
You wouldn't want a hypoglycemia. Of course, I have had my own attacks of hypoglycemia after I took insulin, and God saved me many times. So that's how it was. So these are all the downsides of taking insulin as well. And post insulin, I also mistakenly thought that yeah, I can be a little free with food. As and when required, I could always be little free with food and then take more doses of insulin and stuff like that, without understanding that it is going to build more resistance and you're going to require more and more insulin. I was not a big fan of sweets directly, but then carb was another thing which never occurred to us, right? So we thought as long as we are medicated and we are taking rice and samosas, it's okay. As long as I'm not taking a sugary drink, right? And I was a big foodie. There was no place I would leave unvisited in the city I used to live. And but the dose of insulin only started increasing again and again. What started off as 6 + 6 units a day, ultimately in 2018 January, it went up to 36 + 36, around 72 units a day. And while I was still, around 12 or 14 units a day or 20 units a day, my PP used to go up to 200 in the after lunch. And I always had a struggle of fasting also. Fasting used to be around 140. But after even reaching 72, 74 units a day, my PP started going to 250. And my fasting also started coming to 160. So that's when I was worried. And I went to a doctor, a very famous diabetologist. And he just changed the, I would say the medicines, but not only the class. I wouldn't say he even changed the class of medicine. So within the class of medicine, he was just rotating one for another, right? In DPP-4, he went from one gliptin to another. In sulfonylurea, he tried going from one to another, and in an insulin, some other, concoction. So I just thought this is not getting anywhere, right? This is just increasing. And I was really worried. And at that time, I was 46. I was really thinking whether I would even survive to see 50, right? That was the state I was in. And with a young son who was just in 8th standard or 9th standard that time, I thought, where is my life going? I was seriously worried. So that's when I got in touch with my cousin who was into low carb, and I also got in touch with the D-Life, and then that's how I got introduced to you. So everyone, and I watched a few videos that my cousin sent across, which all made sense, which said, all these things that we are taking, the tablets, the medicines, are all attacking the symptoms. Right. There's nothing which is attacking the root cause. So unless you address the cause of the problem, the symptoms are going to reappear. Whatever you do to the symptoms is only temporary. And that made sense. And then that's when I understood that all this is happening because you are becoming more and more insulin resistant. And the high blood sugar you notice is only that it's a symptom of that. And not only that, it already, I started having fatty liver in the last 3 to 4 years before that, like say 2016 onwards or 2015 onwards. And even though I never used to consume alcohol or whatever. And in what also made me look around was I was always bothered about my kidneys. And there is an indicator, an early indicator of your kidney function called microalbuminuria, which has a limit of less than 30. And in 2018 January, when I went for the test, it came up to 100. So which really got me worried that it could then, as long as you're still within 200, it's still reversible. But then how do you reverse is the question, because I was already on Ramipril. All these ACE inhibitors are supposed to protect, or supposed to be nephroprotective, and still they didn't work. So that got me worried. And that is when I looked for such alternate stuff. And this made absolute sense. So I just thought, why not give it a try? Because, as we are also into manufacturing, we know, your output is directly, you can be controlled by input, right? So if your input is wrong, you may get the wrong output. So that's where this started.
Right. So that was a rough journey, I would say. About what, 15 years you were diagnosed?
2000 to 2018. 2018, it's about 18 years.
About 18 years, right? So 18 years of struggle, 18 years of battle. being a pharmacist yourself, you really took the best medication. But like you said, it was only the symptoms that you were taking care of. The root cause was always there, and it was only getting worse by the day. There was no
and one more thing, Michelle. Sorry to interrupt you. I progressively started losing my freshness after 2008, right? Or 2009. And I also always used to think, okay, as I'm climbing the corporate ladder, it is the stress, it is this, so it's okay. It went to a level where Saturday and Sunday, I didn't want to even get out of my bedroom, right? So you become sleepy, you become so tired at the end of the day, and you attribute to work stress and stuff like that. So that was another downside to your professional life as
well. Right. Things that we generally don't want to accept, that our health is creating all of these issues. And how do we do that? We believe that we are doing something right. Also, I don't think you had a very junk food lifestyle. So you were not eating pizzas and pasta every day. You were not drinking a lot of cola. You were managing your diet pretty well. Yes, we all are foodies. We love to eat, right? And it was just that food choices that we were making that was leading to all of this. And it's such a freedom to realize that we can control it. That's the only thing that we can control, of what we can eat. Everything else the body manages on its own. Once we have eaten something, there is nothing much that we can do, but we can control what we eat. So that's how you started to explore low carb, because you realized that the medications are not helping you to control anything, are not helping you to reverse anything. And it was just life in general, family, that you were concerned. It's a concern for all of us. So that's what got you into low carb. So tell us, how did it started improving? What was the journey in low carb? How did you start? How did your numbers respond to it?
Right. So I got an advice of how a low carb diet should look like. And of course, you cannot make it zero carb, but carbs are omnipresent. But as you said, it's just low carbs, but you consciously drop things that have a lot of carbs in your food. So I got a good diet plan, and then I started following. So one day I decided to just drop the normal food, and that day was February 20th.
For our viewers, what do you mean when you say carbs? When our viewers are watching
rice, wheat, rava, maida. The refined flours are much worse. That doesn't absolve the guilt on the part of rice or wheat. They are equally great culprits. The pulses, dals. It's a very, very mistaken concept that goes around saying, dals are all proteins, and but they're all carbs. They're all high carbs. The protein level is very, very, very less in those things. Milk, fruits, because they contain, again, people get shocked when you say, oh, you should not eat fruits. Are they carbs? Oh, so everybody tells it's so healthy. And then they are, they do have, but there are alternates to that, right? Not when you have insulin, they're not for you when you have insulin resistance. If you're gifted with a body which doesn't have insulin resistance, maybe yes. Fruits, milk, but not milk products, not all the milk products. For example, cheese or paneer are the best things, right, for us, or a whey protein are the best things for us. Hunkered and stuff like that. But, otherwise, generally these, and the other things to be avoided are unstarchy vegetables, potatoes, yam, arbi, suran, colocasia, yam, and stuff like that. The sweet potatoes, beetroots, carrots, all of them.
All the roots.
all the roots, maybe except muli. Maybe, you know, that didn't do anything, but other
How
than
much
that,
muli do
most
we
of them.
eat
Now,
anyways?
exactly. There are always exceptions to every rule. So yeah, so most of them which grow under the root, I mean, under the soil, and the most important things that we need to avoid are seeds and their oils. So all these sunflower oil, mustard oil, gingerly oil, blah blah, except coconut or extra virgin olive oil, all the oils, right? And the more number of times it is refined, the worse for you. So a double refined doesn't make you healthy; it puts you into more risk. So that's how it is. Yeah.
So,
So these are carbs.
so this is how you
Yeah,
started.
yes. So what I did is one day, one fine morning, I just decided to drop all the carbs. Okay, that I mentioned now. So the breakfast, I took some paneer and some hung curd, some cheese, um, some lemon water with salt, and that's it. And for the lunch, I took some green vegetables, a couple of green vegetables, all cooked in butter or ghee. Um, and then again, I had some cucumbers and stuff like that with some hunker. And the night I followed what I had in the morning again with vegetables, of course. And that's how I started. And of course, because I was such a quote unquote huge diabetic with PP going to 250 after having 72, 74 units of insulin, I was also thinking if this concept is really true, then I should actually have a hypo. So I was measuring my blood sugar levels. I used to start measuring it even 7, 8 times a day before the food, after the food, and things like that, just to be sure how is it going. 1, 2, 3, 4 days. The fifth day it started showing. Okay, so I started measuring my blood glucose levels 5 to 6 times a day, before every meal, after every meal, because I was expecting if the theory sounded, you know, all logical. So I thought I should see the results. And after 4, 5 days, it started declining my blood sugar levels. And from that day onwards, I had to, you know, start decreasing my dose of insulin from 72 units a day to 60 units a day, which is 30 plus 30. And then I came down to 50, and I came down to 45. And, you know, while saying all this is easy, you do hit plateaus, right? Like, say, at 45, I came and hit a plateau. And now it wasn't reducing. And my sugar levels, of course, my sugar levels had come down to, miraculously, they had come down to somewhere around 125 after food. Can you even imagine? I was like clocking 250. I had like now come down to almost normals. And my fasting also came down to somewhere around anywhere it used to hang between 94 and 105, depending on the type of food I used to take the previous night and the time I used to go to bed before I used to, you know, after I used to have my food. And then you hit a plateau, right? And then we take some interventions. So that is where, you know, the experienced people like you, Shashi, Anup, and many of our friends come in. And you constantly keep on taking their advices as to what to do and what interventions. So at one point of time, I did discover that after reaching such levels, you know, dairy proteins were not for me for some time. So for temporarily, I took a pause with cheese and paneer, and again the decline started, and it started, and it. So I started this on February 20th of 2018, and on May 27th, I was out of insulin. 2018.
Wow.
So it's just 3 months and 4 days. I was totally out of insulin. I cannot describe the joy that I had, Mishal, you know, throughout this journey, right? Yes, it was a little, you know, tough here or there as I started losing fat. Especially you have this abdominal fat, right, which goes and sits everywhere. I did have, you know, my muscles and all started a little bit of pain in the backside, in your hips, which eventually took 1 or 2 months to go. But I didn't have to do anything for that, right? And I knew that the fat was going out. And throughout this journey, I should say, when I started, I was around 95 kilos. And by May 27th, I was around 73 kilos. So I lost also 22 kilos in this journey. I was feeling so light. The feeling is something I just cannot describe in words, Mishal. It was like I could say, I just thought as if I got all the energy that I had during my, as a student of 12th standard, which I never thought would come back. I thought, my life is gone, right? I mean, it's just decaying and drowsiness, and it's all about, it was all gone. It was all gone. I just cannot describe the feeling of being so light. It's like suddenly one day you're out of debt, right? You had crores and crores you're owing to somebody, and overnight somebody cleared everything.
Right.
Your mind is free. You don't know what to do. This Sundays and Saturdays, the drowsiness was gone. And one more thing I wanted to say was, I used to be such a passionate driver. I used to love driving, to the extent that, with my Audi, I had even clocked 250 kilometers an hour, right? Of course, not in India, but in Mexico. But, all that was gone, and it became so conservative, so conservative. I was hesitating to drive over 40 or 50, and people started calling me names saying safety.com and stuff like that, right? So, but it was actually not safety, it was drowsy.com, diabetes.com. So, and now I got it back. The day I got this, oops, I started getting my skills, and I could give auto drivers in Mumbai a run for their money and the skill. Okay? And there are nobody in front of me with my big fat car. I could do anything. So it was just like, a blind man getting his eyesight back. I cannot describe that feeling, right? I was out of all the sulfonylureas, all the DPP4s, everything. Except, of course, for metformin, which is a very neutral stuff. It doesn't do anything to you. You have it, you don't have it. It's a different issue.
Right.
But that is how it was.
So much of enthusiasm and so much of joy. It's really that kind of a feeling, you have so much of debt, and one day somebody just clears it. It's how you get your health back in your hands. We fail to realize how important it is. We fail to also realize we have got so used to being dependent on medication. And yes, medications are life-saving. They are life-saving.
Yeah.
But there is more that we can do. And getting that control back in our own hands, now you're driving your own car, the car of your life.
Yeah.
Right. So you also had mentioned that you were seeing some kidney damage and you had a fatty liver as well. So did you see improvement in that?
Yes. So by May 27th or May, June, I went for another test. The fatty liver had absolutely vanished. And the microalbuminuria came back to 6. Whereas the limit was 30. I always, even during my quote unquote normal days, it used to hover around 25, 26. It was actually, they reported it as less than 6, and it was not once. And then after that, during all my periodic checking, it used to get maintained. And yes, I was out of Ramipril, out of almost everything. In fact, Ramipril is something I kicked it out with all joy as soon as I started the low carb journey.
Right. So Vijay, you're a busy man and you also travel a lot. Tell us, were you able to manage this while you are traveling? Is this a sustainable diet, or is it a sustainable lifestyle? I no more even want to call it a diet. Is this sustainable? What were the challenges you faced? How did you overcome them?
Yeah. So in one word, is it sustainable? The answer is yes. Okay. Because the only proof that I'm alive, kicking, and so happy even after 2.5 years, the answer is yes. Yeah. Even now I have not dropped. But on a serious note, yes, I do a lot of travel, and I do attend a lot of meetings. So, but number one, when I am attending meetings in Mumbai, in my corporate office or something, I'm just not ashamed of carrying my own boxes of green vegetables, cooked in butter, this, that, and stuff like that. Initially, it is difficult. I'm not saying no. I changed a company, and on day one, on a meeting with all the top guys in a hotel, in a 5-star hotel, you are carrying a jute bag with 4 dabbas plastic dabbas, looks very, you feel very ashamed. But then I thought, let me do it. I don't want to. The other option was just staying hungry, which I didn't want. But still, I just took all these. Eventually, you find one or two more who are also trying to do, and so you get together, and others start admiring your
Dedication.
steadfast stand and dedication on not giving this up, this persistence, and it has yielded results, right? It's always, people always think diabetes is something which you cannot overcome, and everybody has a diabetic in their home, or they're diabetics themselves. I don't expect today that at senior levels you don't have cardiovascular or a metabolic disorder syndrome. So that's the biggest problem with the corporate life. But then that was something I used to do. I always used to carry food from home as long as I was in Mumbai. Now, coming to travel, right? If I had to catch flights, I used to always have breakfast at home and then go to the airport. But if I had early morning flights, then I used to carry a lot of cheese, some groundnuts, almonds with me, and have it in the airport before the flight or during the flight. These are some things which you can carry in your carry bag. And in the morning itself, it's very easy for you to have a cup of coffee with coconut milk. Coconut milk is with fat, right? Not the sweetened one, the unsweetened one. So fat pulls you through for quite some time. I used to have coffee with coconut milk, some butter, and then move out for an early flight. And in the flight, I used to have cheese. But then, fate is very cruel, Mishal. Okay, the day I dropped all this Air India, which used to give biscuits, used to started serving masala dosas and idlis, and then on the return flight, samosas, and that aroma is really, I was so angry on those guys. So I called the guy who was, the air hostess, and I told him the flight attendant, and I told him, I was so angry, but I didn't want to show him. So it's not his poor fellow's mistake, right? It's fate's mistake. I said him, now pack this for me, and he gladly packed everything, and then I took it for my son. So, but then I just didn't. There was just not a single time I ever yielded to temptation, right? And I didn't do it, and that's it. So the first sort of what we call it as a cheat meal I had after 7 or 8 months. And that too for the sake of having to see what happens, but I was not a great fan of such a cheat meal or something like that. And while traveling, of course, I carry a lot of nuts, I carry a lot of cheese, coconut milk, and in the hotels, even though we do stay at 5-star hotels, but I have seen, there were times when I had to go to small restaurants as well. I used to go and reach out to the chefs. So when the waiter comes with a menu, I used to ask him that I want to talk to the chef directly. Sometimes I used to go into the kitchen and tell them how he should make my food. So, for example, in Indore, I used to always stay in Radisson. For a period of time, when I enter Radisson, everybody would know. In fact, from the reception, they would tell him, the chef, that this guy's come. So he would be waiting for me. So he knows how I take, how he should make my morning breakfast, how he should make my night dinner. I usually used to tell him, cabbage, you can add some fresh coconut, but then cook it in butter, right? And just add some this chili powder, salt, and turmeric powder. That's it. So he used to make a small one like that, couple of sabjis, sometimes palak paneer, right? But the way I wanted to make, not by adding some maida or something like that. So in places where our company had the guest houses, I used to line up. In places where we never used to have, I used to tell my company HR in that site that this is the type of food I want. So they used to only tell me that, can you just type it on a WhatsApp and send me how to cook? So I send them, and then they used to buy that and come back. And being, in quality, we always have a philosophy saying trust but verify. So as soon as I eat, after 2 hours, I used to check my blood sugar to see whether they were not added anything, and they never did it. So that is how I used to manage. So I never felt that as a constraint. I think, to give a very high level gyan, and it is real also, the constraint is only in your minds. When you have decided to do something, everyone in the world will support you to do that. Nobody is going to come and put sugar in your mouth. So it's your choice.
True. That's
Yeah.
true. And for our viewers, you are a vegetarian. Being a vegetarian, your options in low carb are very limited. And the only reason that maybe you are so dedicated and don't want to do a cheat meal is because you have gone through those 15, 18
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
that
That's a
fear,
nightmare.
a
Oh yeah.
nightmare where you don't even know if you're going to be around to enjoy your family or to be with your family.
Or
So
be a burden to your family.
yeah, right. That fear itself has got you to this dedication. But then
Yeah.
for our viewers who are like generally traveling, who want to start this, it is not that difficult. The reason you are so dedicated about it is, okay, maybe you have an option. It's the oils. So basically, if you're going out, you can survive on cheese, coconut milk, which is that packet of Dabur coconut milk. There's nothing extraordinary about it. It's available everywhere. There is curd, there is nuts, there are
Mm.
groundnuts that we can carry.
Mm.
And always cook in butter, ghee, coconut oil. Do not use refined oil. That's the reason you are going. And
Yeah.
the reason you are going out to a chef and telling
Yeah.
him how to cook is not because he doesn't know to cook. It's because there is always this added corn, added maida, added corn syrup that is there in most of the
Or they use
meals
oil. Yeah.
and the oils that are there mostly in restaurants.
That's one. And I used to ensure that, they clean their pans in front of me before they start, because the previous oil doesn't stick.
Right, right.
They could have cooked some Chinese and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So, but when we are doing it at home, these are things that are in our control. When we are traveling, we can always look at these things which we can munch on.
Yeah. But at home, it's not that I'm not enjoying and I'm just eating green vegetables every day. So, yeah. I do make paneer butter masala. I do make palak paneer, paneer burji. There are several things with paneer cheese toast or whatever it is. We do, at times have these coconut powder, and with that you can still make your tikkis, right? You only don't put aloo. That's fine. Doesn't matter. We also make chocolates. I still have, every day is there. I don't miss my chocolates at all. We have cocoa, we have cocoa butter. And you can just make your chocolates and have it at home. It's only that the outside in the factory made chocolates may have some additives.
Right.
But you are not actually missing anything in life. But the sense of feeling very light, and as compared to how drowsy, dragging, and heavy we used to feel earlier, that's something which keeps you, you don't want to go back to that life again.
True.
You feel as light as a feather, and you're like, floating in air. So
True.
that's the greatest feeling.
True. And this is why I am doing this series, which is called Low Carb Heroes of India, because this is day to day. There is this whole concept that low carb or keto is a Western diet. Low carb keto is bacon and eggs. It's always about steak. Vegetarians can't do it. It's for youngsters. It's for teenagers. It's not that. It is we normal people with office, we have to go, we have to travel, we have to take care of our kids, we cook at home, and we still maintain this lifestyle. So Vijay, you are a hero. Tell me, how have you influenced others in your life with your low carb philosophy?
See, several people who want to do, who are hesitant. So this also requires motivation, right? I mean, to be motivated. At times you do feel a little low with whatever philosophies, whatever I would say objective with which you started. But I was lucky to have a group with all of you, Shashikant, Anu, many of us in the group. So that keeps you motivated, right? So one odd day you feel, is it, do we, I mean, when you start off, after that, it's a different issue. So that day you just ask them, so you feel so motivated that, oh, they're still doing, they were all doing it for the last 4 years, 5 years, and they're still continuing to do. So I said, this is nothing, I've just started. And not that Shashikant doesn't travel, he travels more than me. Every day he travels, at least for us, we get to sit in the office sometimes a week. So that way, I think those who wanted to do, who just talk to us and they also start. So we keep on talking to them. A few of my friends, we keep on. We are giving that feeling that you're not alone. When we are doing, you can also do. So they also lean on us. And a couple of cases, at least I can tell. One is my own mother, who is now just going to turn 78. Now she's almost 77 and 11 months now. She's also a very, very pure vegetarian. In fact, she is a little averse to even onions and garlic. So she is also a diabetic, much less severe than me. She didn't go into insulin, and she had more control than me and more discipline than me in her lifestyle. But she also was on sulfonylureas and DPP4s and metformins. And she also had the same problem over a period of the last 17-16 years. Her HbA1c levels started going up, even though she never used to take potatoes and stuff like that. Of course, I freaked out, but she didn't. But in spite of that, her HbA1c, and she saw mine getting control. So she said whether she can do. Of course, one of the low carb doctors also said, do you really want to do it? Because you are a vegetarian at this age. But she and my cousin motivated her. We said, okay, let's try. If otherwise you can always have the option of going back. So she started, and she's also into low carb now for the last 2 years now. I'm for 2.5 years now. She's in for 2 years, and she was able to drop all her. In fact, for her it worked extremely well, and at times she doesn't even have to take metformin. And her sugar levels are much under control. Like say. Hardly 125, 124, fasting is 106 and stuff like that. Absolutely more or less normal.
And at the age of 77.
Of course, she hasn't gone into, she has not gone into keto. She maintains low carb, high fat, which means less than 100 grams of carb a day. But I think it has worked very well for her. A few of my cousins too, and a couple of my friends in school, who are in the south.
You're doing an excellent job, Vijay. You are a low carb hero. You are able to influence so many of them with your own example. And like you said, it can be different for everyone. Everyone doesn't have to be on strict keto. Everyone doesn't have to
That's right.
just eat non-vegetarian. It can be different for everyone. Whatever works for you, just try and maintain your carbohydrates. Take out the grains, take out the seed oils. First thing, that's like the biggest thing. Move back to saturated fat, add more fat to your diet so there is satiety. For vegetarians, eat vegetables. I always say this, vegetarians call themselves vegetarians, but they never eat vegetables. There is so small quantity of vegetables and there is so much of grains. So add up those vegetables, your dairy products, your paneer, your hung curd, nuts, groundnuts, almonds, walnuts, whatever we can add, coconut. So add all these things and then see how much carbs you can tolerate, what is working out for you. Right. We all do it for different reasons. We all have those health markers that we want to see improve. So whatever works best, just take out the grains, just try to be low carb, take help from a proper nutritionist. You said it was the community that supported you. It was the doctors who were there. It was the people who have been doing it for so long.
The dietitians and the nutritionists. That's very important. Yeah.
The nutritionist, right? Otherwise, on your own, you cannot really read a blog and do this.
Yeah.
And once you've seen the results of low carb, you cannot unsee it. You just cannot go back to what you were before. You can once in a while go and do a cheat meal, but you're always thinking that, okay.
Yeah. One more very important thing, Mishal, which people should know is, I used to get cold, cough, fever at least 4 to 5 times a year, right? And that's completely vanished after 2018 February. The day I dropped it, especially during our Indian winters too and the rainy season. In the last 2.5 years, I've not had one instance of cold, cough, or fever. I don't know. It should be because of this, because it cannot be so much of a coincidence. Not for 2.5 years, and there was no way it would vanish. Right? So that's another big thing.
Right. We just don't think about it much as to how these small things keep affecting us. Like, I know somebody who had a slight migraine on and off most of the time, and there was always this thing running on their mind. Okay, I have migraine most of the time. They went on low carb and their migraine is off, never reappeared. So that itself is such a liberating feeling, that I don't have migraine anymore. Otherwise, even that slight migraine is such a thing. We don't realize it when we are taking medications, when we just casually say, "Arey, mujhe bhi sinus hai, mujhe bhi migraine hai, हाँ mujhe bhi thoda BP hai," you know. But once we are off it, once it's no more there, it's such a happy feeling. It's such a freedom. It's just that freedom and that joy.
It's very liberating.
Yes. So, Vijay, thank you so much. Towards the end, would you like to just advise our viewers, the ones who are struggling with diabetes, the ones who are really looking to improve their health? What is your advice?
Yeah. So in diabetes, I think, in my view, unless you control the input, you'll never be able to control diabetes. It is not something which you're going to fight with drugs. Well, yes, you may require it for some time. You should take professional advice with doctors and nutritionists. Please don't do it on your own. But drugs and insulin are not solutions. Not only are they not solutions to the problem, they are going to exacerbate this thing much further. Okay. On the other hand, a low carb diet will not only reduce or control your diabetes. It is going to make yourself stress free and is going to be very helpful in the long run. It's not something very difficult for anybody to achieve. If a foodie like me could achieve, then I think I see 90% of the people are more controlled than me in terms of the desire for food. So it should be very easy for the normal guys, the normal people to, who are having normal food to achieve this. So I don't think there's any difficulty, and I think this is the most logical thing to do, because otherwise, by just attacking the symptoms, where are we going to go unless you address the root cause? And the root cause is insulin resistance, and insulin resistance keeps on increasing as you keep on taking more and more carb, and more carb leads to oxidative stress inside your own body, and that again is going to in turn exacerbate your diabetes. So that's not going to take us anywhere. The earlier we adopt, the better for you. Like in the case of my mother versus me, right? So she's easily managing with a low carb diet, not necessarily a ketogenic diet, and you'll see certainly wonderful results, and your life will transform. You'll be a totally different person to do what you want to do, whether to be sitting idle in your house or to work somewhere or pursue your hobbies or passion. That's something you have to experience to see. So, and it's not difficult. So, and many of us are there. And I'm a normal person too. I'm not, we are not doing this for the sake of any promotion or anything like that. So this is a real story. And I'm still living, and many of my colleagues, thousands of my colleagues are seeing me every day.
And you're setting such a great example.
Yeah, thanks, Mishal.
Vijay is setting such a great example. We can do low carb at any age. Vijay's mom is such an example that she is managing her own health just with controlling the intake of carbohydrates. And like Vijay said, this is for normal people. Just we day to day people who are having a normal life. So thank you, Vijay, so much for taking out the time today, being such an inspiration, and you are truly a low-carb hero of India. Thank you so much for being such a great example.
Thank you very much, Mishal. Thanks for connecting. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Mishal.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you so much.
Okay. See you.
See you. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do like the video, share it with your friends and family. In the comments below, do let us know your feedback, your questions. You can connect with me for a low-carb nutrition plan. Do check with your doctor before you alter your medications. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you get notifications for further videos. Thank you so much and take care.